Thank you.
Thank you. The webcast started.
Thanks very much, Caroline. So good afternoon and welcome to the decision days of myself. I'm Kirsty North, the Executive Lead Member for Universal Services, as well as Lulu Bauman, the Executive Member for Highways and Passenger Transport. These decision days are being broadcast in one session live on YouTube via the County Council website. I would like to welcome some of our other councillors on the meeting today. So we've got Councillor Malcolm Wallace, who's here from the Independent Group, Councillor Rob McAtter, our Universal Services Select Committee Chairman, Councillor Jackie Branson, our Select Committee Vice Chairman, and Councillor Louise Parker-Jones and Councillor Martin Todd, who are speaking today. Deputations, I don't have any public deputations, but the councillors that requested to speak will be able to do so at the beginning of each item. Councillor Parker-Jones, as the project appraisal Fair Oak Village improvements is first, would you like to speak now, and then we can formally start that?
Thank you very much. Yes,
no problem.
Thank you very much. So thank you for allowing me to address you today, and thank you for all the work the officers have put in. I know myself and Councillor Broomfield have spent many hours over several years getting to this point, and we're really pleased that this has come forward in terms of the improvement it will make for pedestrians and cyclists, especially in areas such as Mortimer's Lane. And as you can imagine, I have received some strong responses in support of this. And obviously, I've received a few things where people feel that it could be improved. So I do want to share their concerns and hope that you will take them into account. So there have been proposals to improve crossings near Goater's Way and Pembers Farm, and this is to be applauded. However, we know that the speeds that cars and heavy lorries reach on Mortimer's Lane are significant, and it would have been wonderful if we could consider having those actually turned into light controlled crossings for the safety of everybody involved. As you will have heard, when our residents from Mortimer's Lane came and made a deputation at full council, there are significant problems with heavy lorries which use the road in excessive speeds. And I think that though I've explained that by narrowing the road in points, this should reduce speed, I think, there is still a fear, particularly for those that are experiencing vibrations from those heavy lorries coming past at speed. So it would be wonderful if Hampshire County Council would look at that road surface to see if there is a problem, that perhaps needs addressing beyond this scheme. And thirdly, coming back to speed again, and again in particular to Mortimer's Lane, it would be wonderful if we could have more speed limit reminders in that area. It is by its name a lane, or was a lane, and there's been significant construction all along it now, and so people do come at quite a speed. And as we've heard, there have been some significant incidents that have unfortunately occurred in that area. But all of that being said, I do want to thank Councillor Adams-King, who came and met with Councillor Broomfield and myself, and Councillor Bauman, who gave lots of her time to listen to all of our concerns. And we are really pleased to see the improvements that have been made to that initial design. And it's a really, really good step in the right direction. But as you will imagine, we do have these concerns, so I do hope that they will be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louise. Councillor Parker-Jones, for your comments. So to move to formally introduce the item, I think Patrick will introduce, and then we can get into some questions.
Okay, many thanks, Councillor North. Good afternoon, everybody. And also thank you, Councillor Parker-Jones, for your comments, your positive comments on the scheme. It's really helpful to feed that back and have that fed back about officers as well. So just by way of introduction for the paper, I mean, the scheme, as we mentioned in the introduction there, is to improve cycling and walking in the Fair Oak area. It's funded from Section 106 from the local developments that took place in that area and taking place. And I think a really key point in its flag is going to really improve the links for cycling and walking in that area. So it'll actually improve it massively for that. And so actually it's a very positive scheme. And I know that there has been a lot of interest in this, very positive interest about it taking place. And just to address your points you raised, Councillor Parker-Jones, on the additional items that we've been made aware of, and I was certainly made aware of them this morning. It's certainly something we can look at as part of taking the scheme forward. I've got officer colleagues on the call with me today, and I know that we will give a proper response to the detailed points that have been made to us, but it's something that we can look at as part of that work as well. But Councillor North, that was all I was saying by way of introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Councillor Baumann, would you like to speak first on this, or would you like me to open up to other questions?
You open up to other questions. That'd be brilliant.
Okay, to flag to you, we can't hear you at present, but I think I've just about understood what we're doing. Members on the call, any yes, questions? Rob, Malcolm, Jackie?
No, I'm fine.
So thank you. Okay, no problem. Questions from me. Signage has been raised with me personally. I appreciate Councillor Parker-Jones just referred to signage as well in her deputation there. And I note that the aims of the paper does include signage seeking to reduce vehicle speed. So could we just have a bit more background and detail on that particular aspect, if possible, please?
Okay, thanks, Councillor North. I'm going to hand over to Tim Lawton and David Wilson, who are on the call, who are both familiar with the scheme. I think Tim has put his hand up for that.
For Tim, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor North and Patrick. I just wanted to come back specifically on the speed issue. The speed limit, and forgive me, I can't remember exactly where it extends to, but it's already subject to a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. But it's a street lit area. So, and because it's a street lit area, we can't put reminder signs there. It's, implicit, the fact that it's a street lit area, that it is a 30-mile-an-hour limit along there. If it was a 40-mile-an-hour limit, then we could put repeaters, but in a 30 limit, that's not permissible. David, I don't know whether you want to add anything on that or any of the other issues.
If I could just add that Tim's quite correct. We can't put additional 30 roundels where there's lamp post lighting columns, but what we can do is there's sort of community style signs that make reference to a 30, and I think because on Mortimer's Lane the street lighting is not particularly prominent in terms of its location. Sometimes the lights are on telegraph poles as opposed to be on standard lighting columns. And I think for that reason, we could justify a few additional community style signs to try and reinforce the point and try and get speeds down on Mortimer's Lane. So I'll make sure that that's included in the scheme.
If you could, that would be very, very helpful. Thank you. I'd appreciate that. And could we be kept up to date on the other sort of road safety speeding aspects, because I appreciate this is very much a walking and cycling improvement scheme, and happy to separate the two in terms of the background workings, but to members of public they may wrap it up into one. So if we could be kept informed of progress with those issues as well, and the additional signages and anything else that can be done to generally reduce speed in that area, I'd be very grateful, and I'm sure Councillor Parker-Jones and Councillor Broomfield would be too. Councillor Baumann, if mic problems are resolved, would you like the opportunity to speak now?
Sorry, I'm glad it's resolved anyway.
It says in the papers that further discussions are currently being held with traffic management and road safety teams about the possible improvements, including gateway features. I think we talked about that this morning, actually, with 20 miles per hour, road narrowing and additional signage, and this could be funded from within the approved budget. Is this the case? I'm going to direct this at Tim, if I may, Patrick. Is that something that is possible? Other measures, or I thought I saw David flashing up there.
Yeah, if that's okay, Councillor Bowerman. I did have
Yes,
a brief
of course.
conversation with David earlier, so I know he's probably more likely to have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we would like to go a little bit further. I mean, we've read quite extensively the concerns about speed in the area in Mortimer's Lane. And one option would be to do some sort of gateway or build out style measures. But budgets, as you know, are always tight, and we have to just work through this with our contractor and see what's possible, either as part of this scheme or as part of a future scheme. But it's certainly something we're mindful of and something that we're looking at just now. So if possible, we could add something in, but we'll keep you updated and informed.
And one further question, if I may, is there a further development going to take place further up Mortimer's Lane or around that area that additional funds could come from?
I really don't know the answer to that. I don't know if anyone else knows if there's further development planned in the area.
I'm going to look at Councillor Parker-Jones.
There's nothing currently specifically that's been had any decisions taken on it, and I'm saying it that way because I obviously chair a committee that would take the planning decisions in that area, but we are aware that there have been a number of speculative conversations held regarding potential development in that area. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
No decisions have been made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you, Councillor North.
Okay, thank you. In which case, I am happy to approve the recommendations as set out on page 5 of the agenda, and would just ask that we do follow up the action point on the signage and keeping us all up to date on the other sort of issues associated with that area, but recognise the positive comments from Councillor Parker-Jones and Councillor Broomfield, who's also had discussion with me separately too, about the improvements to walking and cycling for that area. So thank you very much on that. We can move on to item number 2, which is food waste processing. Patrick to introduce, please. Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Councillor North. So you see the paper in front of you is around food waste processing, and basically as Waste Disposal Authority, this is about us putting in place the disposal arrangements for food waste, which is about meeting the requirements, the legislative requirements under the simpler recycling legislation, which is laid by government. I think a key part of the paper is the financial impact on the county council, and we get no funding for this, and therefore there'll be a financial impact on that. But what the team have done is put proposals together to try and minimise that. It sets out the detailed steps that we would take to put that in place, how we would go about that. And it's really about moving quite quickly, subject to the decision over the next 9 months, to make sure we've got that infrastructure in place to be able to meet the requirements, such that when the waste collection authorities are collecting food waste across the county, it can be processed as our requirements. But I'm joined on the call with James Potter if there's any sort of detail we need to get into. But that's what I was going to say by way of introduction to the paper. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Patrick. I know it's something that we've all discussed quite a lot already, but members on the call, any questions from you, Rob, Malcolm, Jackie?
No, thanks, Kirsty. I agree with you. I think it's really good to see this coming forward. Clearly, all the collection authorities are going to have to pick up food waste next year, and I think it's really very encouraging what the county council is doing about it. So I think it's a very appropriate paper.
Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, just to say, I had a bunch of questions on this, which I asked during the pre-brief around not only about how the transfer stations and about the timing, about how long we keep things on site, the sealed containers and so on. And also we talked about the impact on the ERF, the Energy Recovery Facility, from changing the mix of waste that are going to that. So the officers were able to give me some great answers. So yeah, I just wanted to say that we have asked questions and they were well answered. So thank you.
That's really great to hear. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. I visited a transfer station and saw in action in order to get my head around some of that sort of stuff. And it is key. There is a lot but that goes on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily talk about in public. So it's a really good point to do that more and acknowledge that we have done that outside of this virtual room. I don't think there was Jackie wanted to ask anything. Lulu, anything from you on this one? We've lost you again. We've got unfortunate mic issues from Lulu.
No, it's fine.
We can always hear you when you say no.
Oh, can you hear me now if I get that close? Okay. No, just a comment that Rob and I went to a food processing, didn't we? And it down in Sussex last summer. It was very impressive. A little frightening regarding the chemicals, but it's an excellent system, and I'm very pleased to see this coming forward. But so I have shared the experience, Kirsty. Let me say.
Quite.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think from my perspective, it's really important that we do whatever we can to support the rollout of food waste collections to those areas which have not already started, and acknowledge that some have been doing it for quite a long time, so it's not new for them. But it's a clear aim of the government's simpler recycling policy, and the County Council securing that disposal capacity and arranging the logistical challenges of bulking, transferring capacity, as Council was touched on, the change to the mix is really important, and it forms part of the wider changes to waste and recycling. As all of you on the call will know, we took the decision earlier this year to proceed with the new recycling plant to enable a wider range of materials to be recycled from home, and food waste complements that and sits alongside our aims to increase recycling rate, whether food product or cardboard, plastic, or the like. So I'm really pleased to confirm these arrangements and take the decision today. But I do just want to raise the point, and Patrick, you mentioned it there in your introduction, that the associated costs for disposal have not been met, but with some form of new burdens arrangements for disposal authorities, whereas it has for collection. And I think that, I'm keen that we do all we can to continue to press government on that specific point. But thank you very much to all the officers for their hard work today on sorting out these new arrangements as we strive to overhaul and improve our recycling rates, not only to benefit the environment, but for the ease of residents and complete the sustainability of our local economy here in Hampshire. So thank you, and I'm happy to approve those recommendations, which are set out, I believe, on page 29 of the report. Over to agenda item 3, which is the capital programme 24-25 year-end update. Back to Patrick.
Thank you very much, Councillor North. So this is our regular update on the capital programme, particularly the end of year position for 24-25 Q4. It's a fairly detailed report, but actually what it shows is still we have a very significant capital programme that we're running, and this shows the particular year for that. I mean, this year alone it's about 165 million. As always, what the report does is it sets out by branch all the capital schemes that we're undertaking with an update on those, covering all the different areas. But it also talks about a couple of things which we've added to the capital programme through formality, but also a couple of things which we've removed from the capital programme as well. But there is a reasonable amount of detail in the paper. I wasn't proposing to go into that detail. I've got a listener on the call if we need to get into any specifics who looks after this area, but I'm very happy to do that. But that was just by way of the introduction. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Patrick. I'll ask our councillors if they've got any questions. I don't have any questions on the specific detail today, but obviously have had the opportunity to discuss this with you all previously. Rob, Jackie, Malcolm?
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. I think we did go through this in the pre-briefing, and I think we covered a lot of ground there, and I've got no further questions on it.
Me neither.
Fantastic, thank you. I just thought I would take a minute to highlight some of the great schemes that I've had the pleasure of actually visiting and seeing this quarter or year end, should I say. So, you know, we've been to Henry Beaufont to see their Schola Reclad science block and get fantastic feedback from the science teacher there for their wonderful new setting. I was at Basingstoke Canal when a lock gate was literally finished before my eyes that they were working on with some of you on the call, and visited Runways End Outdoor Centre to see their new low ropes, which looked like lots of fun, and I can imagine lots of younger small children climbing all over them by now. But you know, they look like a great replacement. We've been all over the county with the associated MRF and the changes to recycling, but also visited places like Botley Bypass site to see the huge infrastructure scheme that's being delivered there and discuss that with engineers. And then I've been to places like Gosport to see the bus interchange, which links bus passengers to the passenger ferry, and seeing how that can unlock greater economic development for that particular area. And I'm really looking forward soon to visiting the Hayling Billy Trail, which I know has been really popular locally. So just to highlight, I know there's a real breadth and depth of schemes contained within that report, but you know, we're really proud of what we're continuing to do and deliver in tough economic climate and still create great things for Hampshire residents. Lulu, any comments from you? We've lost you again. Failing that, we'll move to the recommendations, which I'm happy to approve on page 39. And Lulu's got a couple more items before she needs to find a microphone to take over. But we will move to item number 4, which is the definitive map modification orders. Patrick.
Thank you, Councillor North. Yeah, so this is a paper on the definitive map modification orders. It had a good airing at Select Committee this morning, lots of questions. I think it was helpful to be able to get across some of the complexity of the process itself and how the team have to diligently work through it with quite complex and often historic considerations that are put forward as part of some of the applications that we get. It's about the adoption of a new statement of priorities about how we manage those applications and how we determine those applications. But a key part of the paper is how we both streamline it and make it more efficient and deal with the applications coming in. I wasn't supposed to go into lots of detail. The paper has it all there for consideration, but there was, again, many good discussions this morning at the Select Committee. But that was all I was going to say by way of introducing the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And I agree. I think it was really useful to include it in the committee's agenda this morning. Rob, did you want to reflect on anything from this morning?
It was a very useful discussion we had at the Select Committee this morning, and it's a difficult situation because it's such a statutory obligation that we have to do it, and therefore takes up a lot of officer time. And when you go through the detail as we did this morning, you fully understand quite how complex an issue it can be to perform a service that we've got no control over the demand for or over its outcome. And I thought it's extremely useful having Harry Goodchild in there this morning explained to us the complexity of it, and I think the Select Committee got a lot out of that. And we just feel that the Council has no choice but to do this, and changing the way we deal with the issue, I think, is exactly the right choice. So I'm very happy to having had the discussion this morning to support what we're doing.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Wallace.
Hello. We had a good discussion. Totally agree with Rob. We had a good discussion this morning, but I've had a little bit more time to think about it now, so I've got a question. What are the negatives of making, and I should have asked this morning, so apologies for that, but what are the downsides of making this change?
Yeah,
Jo,
thank you.
would you like to take a stab at that?
Yes, I shall. I can't see that there are any, Malcolm. Obviously, we made a decision at some point to divide them up into user and historic claims, so the type of claims that are made to us. And we did that really to try and help fast track maybe some of the user claims, because that evidence is time limited as people either lose interest or move away or for other reasons. But actually, we're having tested that now, we just don't feel it is the right approach. So I don't think there's a downside. I think the approach we've taken is one that has been adopted by other authorities. I think we had the discussion this morning that said, actually, whilst we have a really significant backlog that was generated particularly at a certain time because of the closure of the definitive map was proposed, I've just subsequently, following our meeting this morning, had a look, and we're not even in the top 10 of authorities in terms of outstanding backlog. So we are, I think we are just moving in the right direction. I think this is a prudent change to the policy. It helps. It's much more transparent for those people that are making the application. I think that's a real plus, and it will help to manage our limited resources that we have to manage the applications as they come in. So I can't see that there is one. I think we tried it. It didn't work as well as we've sort of gone back to that more taking them in the order in which they arrive, aside from the criteria that we spelt out this morning.
Thank you.
No problem. I think from my perspective is certainly the greater flexibility that this enables is very welcome, and anything we can do to streamline that, but also to make it more clear. And I recognise that a lot of the team's time may be spent responding to queries about which position am I in the queue. It looks like, how long is this taking? I should be done by now. When's it my turn? And if we can clear that, then it actually frees up the capacity to actually be getting on with the task in hand. So I'm very happy to approve those recommendations for exactly the reasons you've set out and the recommendation is on page 69. So very happy with that. On to agenda item number 5, then, appointments to outside bodies. It says, Patrick, are you introducing this item?
Thank you, Councillor. Only very briefly, and just so far as saying it's an update from the recent review. It's seeking approval to the necessary arrangements which are set out in the Constitution. So it's a formality paper.
Thank you. Intrigued as to what you're going to be saying there. As you say, it is a formality paper, and I'm making appointments to partnership bodies as noted in the revised version of the report, which is available to view online or on our website. And then appointments to the local interest bodies are as follows. So Councillor Russell Oppenheimer will remain as the Ashford Hangers Consultative Group, though he has informed me that the consultative group does not meet very often, and he'd be very keen for it to meet again soon. So I air that for him as he's asked. The Blackwater Valley Countryside Partnership, I had received 2 expressions of interest for this, but weighing up the expressions themselves, I've chosen Councillor Alex Crawford as our representative because he has made me aware of his significant involvement locally in the valley. Councillor Debbie Kernell-Ford will represent us on the Deadwater Valley Trust Management Committee. Councillor Michael Thierry on the New Forest Access Forum. Councillor Debbie Kernell-Ford again on the Riverway Trust Management Committee. Councillor Tim Davies and Councillor Stuart Bailey on the Yateley Common Management Committee. And our very own, if she's back, Councillor Lulu Bowman will be our representative on the Hampshire Gardens Trust. And I've been asked to note that these appointments will be for 4 years or until the next full county council election, whichever is sooner. So I'm very happy to approve that. And hopefully Lulu is here ready to take over as we move to her decision day.
Right, let's test this. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank goodness for that. Okay, I am here. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Executive Member for Highways and Passenger Transport, and thank you for attending my virtual decision day today, which continues to be webcast on YouTube via the County Council website. I have no public deputations today, however, will welcome Councillor Todd to speak when I move to item 8. So first up, item 6 is the street lighting savings LED project on pages 91 to 100. And if I could ask Patrick to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. So this is the SP25 street lighting savings, and this is the implementation of part of the SP25 savings proposals we brought back in the autumn last year. It's about varying the PFI contract to replace around 9,000 or 9,400 high power lamps to replace them with much more energy efficient LED lamps. And what that will do is twofold. It will generate savings by way of usage of electricity, so much lower electricity consumption, but also the maintenance of those, and actually the carbon reduction as well, with the maintenance side, with the associated energy reduction as well. So it's a positive story, and it would look to generate over £500,000 worth of savings in terms of revenue for the energy and the maintenance. But that was all I was going to say by way of the introduction to the paper. I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Rob, Councillor McAtter, do you have any questions?
No, I'm no issues at all.
Very straightforward. Councillor Bradson? No. Councillor Wallace?
Just to say, yes, obviously good news. It's great example of as implementing something that's going to. It's a win-win-win all round. Saves us money, you know, reduces our emissions, all good things. So all good.
Nice to hear. Thank you very much, Councillor Wallace. Kirsty, Councillor North.
I would just echo Councillor Wallace's comments. I'm very happy. Back to you.
And absolutely, I think it's been said. We had a very good briefing on this. And I'm very happy that this is coming forward. I know it's been a quite involved piece of work, shall we say, and thank you to the officers for persevering with it. And I'm very happy to give my approval to the recommendations in paragraphs 2 to 3 on page 91, and for this project to proceed. Thank you. Okay, so item 7. This is the lane rental scheme, or disruption charging, and this is something we know is coming forward, and this is for a report for noting only, I understand. So Patrick, would you again like to do the honours, please, and introduce it?
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. And as you rightly said, it's the lane rental scheme that we talked about before. Historically, we used to refer to it as disruption charging, yes. But what we've done is we now refer to it as lane rental, because that aligns us with the legislation and how government are dealing with this. It just means we're very consistent with that terminology that's used by government. So this is about proceeding with the development of the scheme, and this is about kicking off the start of that statutory consultation, which we're required to do as part of that scheme. And what we plan to do post-consultation is bring back the finalised scheme to a decision day in the autumn before submitting that onto the Department for Transport. It has real public benefits in terms of the reduction in disruption, but also changing behaviours of how the companies that particularly work on the network will work to time for that. And just a final point I was going to say is the government are looking to amend the regulations such that a proportion up to 50% of the funding that is surplus in the lane rental side can go back into road maintenance. So it will be subject to decisions today. We will be looking to get that in place next year, subject to the process that I've just outlined there. But that was all I was going to say by way of introduction. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I'm afraid your microphone has
gone again. Okay. Do you want to take over? There's a question from me about the ongoing changes from the DFT, and if we have any ideas about what sort of things that might be introduced. Perhaps you've already mentioned it, Patrick. I don't know if there was anything in addition to what you just said.
Well, if Councillor, if I may, I'm going to hand over to Tim Lawton, who will be much closer to the messages coming out of DFT at the moment, because they are updated quite frequently. But Tim, are you happy to pick that question up?
Yeah, Councillor Bowman, I'm not aware of any changes from the DFT. I mean,
Patrick, there was something in the report.
Patrick's mentioned the secondary legislation, which we are
Okay.
expecting during the summer. But other than that, I'm not aware of any other significant changes from the DfT.
Good. Okay. That's reassuring. Thank you very much for that, Tim. I appreciate that. Are you confident, while I've got you on the line, are you confident that our proposed scheme will be successful at the official consultation?
It's difficult to say. I mean, we're not the first authority to introduce a lane rental scheme. West Sussex, I think Surrey have already got a scheme that's been in operation. It's very successful. I know Southampton City Council pursuing lane rental as well. So we've learned a lot of lessons from those who've already been on this journey. So I'm quietly confident that we will secure the powers that we're seeking. The consultation is a bit of an unknown, but we're dealing with large utility companies that are who are already very familiar with how lane rental schemes work.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Tim. Cheers. Rob, Councillor McAtter, any questions from you?
Yeah, the comments of Patrick and Tim have spurred a question for me. I'm looking at paragraph 21 about the government guidance that lane rental schemes should be between 5 and 10%. In light of what you just said, Tim, and the number of other authorities applying, and what Patrick earlier said about guidance perhaps changing in another area, is that an area that we might be able to apply pressure on? Because it strikes me that reading the paper, lane rental schemes have really worked for other authorities, which is why us and other authorities in turn are applying. And if it works for 5 to 10% of the network, does that also apply for 10 to 15 or 15 to 20% of the network? Does having it over a larger area potentially save us more money, or is that a declining issue as you go beyond 10%? Is suddenly the costs there which aren't covering that first most attractive part of the network?
If I could answer that question first, Patrick. Councillor McAtter, as Patrick highlighted, the objective of the scheme is to reduce disruption on the busier parts of the network rather than apply a charge to the whole network. So this is really centered around behavioral change of those who do work on our roads. We want them to clearly we acknowledge that they need to undertake activities, maintain their apparatus, but we want them to do it at the time when it's least disruptive. And I think the 10% has been arrived at, and I don't know this for certain, this is my own opinion. I think the 10% is a manageable percentage of the network. To do it over a larger proportion of the network, it's going to be quite, I think, cumbersome in terms of administration. And also the 10% probably does align with our busiest routes. I'm not aware of any plans to increase that, but in time, who knows?
I'll tell you why I asked him. I've looked at the map on Petersfield and just thinking my experience in the last 10 years has been there's an awful lot of disruption on some of the, not necessarily the two main routes for Petersfield, but the route just below that. And therefore, that's been a lot of the areas I've had real complaints from residents about disruption of just off those main streets. And therefore thinking if it was just slightly higher, that all the benefits we're trying to get, certainly in my local area, would be applied to just over 10% rather than just under. And that's why I asked the question of whether there's any flexibility there on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, not at the moment. We are constrained at 10%.
Thank you.
Councillor Wallace, any questions?
Thank you.
Just to say, it was a comment I mentioned to Patrick yesterday that I met with one of the fibre installers, and they're fully aware of this coming this work that we're doing, and they were already starting to plan around it, which is really good news.
That is really good news. Thank you for sharing that. Shall I add my own thoughts?
Me?
Oh, I can hear you now. It's very temperamental.
This is stressful. Sorry, apologies, everybody. Councillor North, would you like to make any comment about this?
I'd love to. I'm just going to pick up on the comment there that Councillor Rakata-Robb was raising, which is similar to what has been raised with me, in that we are obviously targeting the roads, our busiest roads in the county, but that does leave other roads which feel busy to the residents that regularly use them, out of reach of this current guidance that we sit in. So I think that obviously that's something that we want to keep a watching brief on, and if the guidance did change then and we received greater flexibility, then some of those rural routes which are necessary to reach the other strategic or just more congested routes could become considered as part of this scheme. But I recognise that we are where we are, and I think that this will be a really positive step to reduce congestion and encourage utility companies to work smarter, to liaise with each other, to get all the works done in hours which are hopefully potentially less convenient for them, but more convenient for everyone else that are trying to travel around on the road network and just get from A to B. So, thank you, Councillor Bowman. I'm afraid we can't hear you, but Tim's got his hand up, so Tim's going to save the day.
Yeah, it was just thank you, Councillor North. It was just a supplementary comment to what you just said, and I agree with everything that you said. I just wanted to highlight that even if a road is not subject to lane rental, it is still subject to permitting, and also subject to the coordination that we do as business as usual.
Thank you, Tim. It's reassuring. Lulu.
I don't know if you can hear me. Shall I try on Teams?
No, we can. We can hear you.
It really is very temperamental today. I do apologise, everybody. I'm not sure what the problem is. I've listened, and we've had a very full briefing on this, very detailed, and I'm very happy to approve this scheme going forward. I think the first part is about going forward for the consultation, the statutory consultation with the affected stakeholders. I know we're on a deadline of the autumn, and this needs to go ahead now very quickly. So I'm happy to approve this proceeding, and also the recommendations in paragraphs 2 to 5 on page 101. So can you still hear me all right? Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Right, shall we try the last item then? So without further ado, this is item 8 on the agenda, and this is the project appraisal for Clifton Terrace in Winchester on pages 131 to 164. At this point, and hopefully you can hear me, Councillor Todd, would you like to come in at this point? Give me the thumbs up. That's brilliant. Thank you. Would you like to come in and say something?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. And if I may, I'd also like to congratulate you on your decision about LED lighting. I just checked. I checked on YouTube and realised that I asked Mel Kendall for this in November 2017, when only 5,000 of our 141,000 lamps were LEDs. But I'm glad to see that 8 years later,
we've got there in the end.
We're making some real progress. Anyway, coming on to this crossing, thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to support this proposal today. This crossing has been something I've wanted to see since I've been a county councillor. It's a really tricky site. It's not straightforward. It's taken a long time to come up with something that works. The temporary solution has been in place for over a year. It's a really popular route, and since the trial began, a really popular crossing, and it's got really good community support. Not everything about the scheme in its original form was perfect, and there were a few surprises in how it was constructed, but it has been improved by officers during the trial process, and that's much appreciated. And this proposal improves it again. So it's great that we're improving the cycle provision and crossing, and also that via the addition of a build-out and uncontrolled crossing in Clifton Terrace, improving pedestrian facilities too. And I'm pleased that we're going to be keeping the access-only signage in places as well. There are slightly mixed views in the community on this. Generally, I think people want to see them kept. Some people would like to see them move on to a statutory basis, and the Residents' Association would like them to be a bit more discreet. So that might be something to just get right in the final execution. And there is still some concern about the rat running that's coming out of this, but I think there is a pragmatic way forward to address the remaining issues, because there's a desire to do. There has inevitably been some actually relatively limited diversion of traffic into the local area. But this is something that's been highlighted as a priority for the Winchester Livable Neighbourhoods pilot. And that's in a package of measures that will be agreed, hopefully, at the leaders' decision day on Friday. So I think there is a way forward for any of the outstanding concerns that people have to be addressed. So I think what we have in front of us, from my perspective as the local ward division member, at least for one side of the road, is a very pragmatic and sensible way forward. It's solved what is actually, once you get into the details of design, a very difficult decision, a very difficult design process to come up with something that works in that particular area. I think it does it well. I think we need to get on and implement it, and I hope you will be able to support it today. And can I just say actually a big thank you to the officers, because they have been really responsive on this and worked really hard to improve it during the process, listen to what people have to say while still keeping the eye on the prize, which is to have a good crossing in place. And I think we're at the point where we need to commit and make it permanent.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd. What a great recommendation. Thank you. Patrick, would you like to introduce this? I think it's been done very well so far.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bannerman, and Councillor Todd. Thank you for the positive comments. I completely agree. I think the officers have worked very hard to come up with a workable solution to what is actually quite a complex problem. And I see the crossing most days around that area, and it's very well used at the moment, the temporary crossing. So it's really good to hear that feedback from us as well. So this is really about seeking approval to implement the permanent scheme. I wasn't supposed to go into lots of details. I think we've covered it. The detail is there in the paper. Actually, in the permanent scheme, it's about implementation of the crossing, but actually the crossing not just for pedestrians, but also for cyclists as well. And you'll see those changes set out in the paper. But the other benefit, of course, of this is actually it's about contributing to reducing vehicular traffic that goes into the city centre as well. So there are many benefits to this scheme. It's well used. I wasn't going to say any more by way of the introduction, but we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Councillor McAtter.
No, I've got no questions. It looks a really complicated problem to try and solve. I'm glad someone else had to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We've lost Councillor Branson, I think. She's come off the call. Councillor Wallace.
No questions from me. Really pleased to see another pedestrian and cycle project moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. Councillor North, Kirsty.
Thank you, Lulu. No, nothing from me. Just really pleased to hear Councillor Todd supporting this and hopefully making your decision very easy.
Indeed. And I have to say it was sorry, Councillor Branson is still on the call, is she? Jackie, would you like to come in and ask any questions? She might be on the call, Tim, but I'm not sure she's responding. So I'll move on if I may. That's okay. Yes, congratulations to everybody who's been involved in this long process. It certainly it needed a lot of careful explanation, and certainly for me as a non-Winchester resident, I did go and have a look at it to make sure I could completely understand it. Very detailed processes, and I was particularly pleased that the online surveys took place, but also that people, I think they called it intercept surveys, where members of the public, local residents, were stopped and asked for their opinions. So, and that was at all times of the day as well. And I thought that was a particularly good way to engage with the public. And I've also read the objections online, and I do acknowledge the concerns. But as Councillor Todd has said, there are ways I'm sure we could find to overcome some of these concerns. We did have additional features introduced, already mentioned additional traffic signs, reconfigurations of the temporary barriers, and I think many of these measures have already helped alleviate the temporary system, which is now moving forward to, subject to my approval, to become permanent. Very pleased to see Cycle Winchester was involved as well, and also that the University of Winchester was supportive in all of these measures. And I know Councillor Todd is supportive, but also Councillor Ferguson as well. I think it's a very good thing to give people the confidence to cross the road at this point, particularly as it's an important route between the hospital and the station. From a cycling perspective and pedestrian perspective, it also links up with St James's Terrace on the other side of Romsey Road as well. And I think that's particularly helpful for local residents and increase the active travel element. So all things considered, I am happy to approve today this project appraisal to go ahead, and for these for this to become permanent, and therefore approve the recommendations in paragraphs 4 to 9 on pages 131 to 132. So thank you very much. And that's the last item on the agenda for today, and I am hugely apologetic for the sound quality and hope that you have heard some of what I've just said. And perhaps Kirsty can give me the thumbs up if that is the case.
Yeah, don't worry, we could hear all of that perfectly.
Very stressful, and I do apologise once again. So without further ado, I would
Thank you.
like
I
to
was
say...
listening, but I couldn't really say anything while I was driving. But I'm now at Chichester.
Thank
you. Bye.
Right, okay. Caroline, please could we, without further ado, close the webcast, and could you just confirm when this is taking place, please?
Of course.
Thank you, and thank you all for your patience with me today.